Hello and welcome to how to use the supporting documents with the Somerset Graduated Response Tool for early identification of need. This is a pre-recorded webinar. My name is Kennedy Coles. I'm an advisory teacher from the Access to Inclusion team. And I'd like to introduce my colleague.
Hi, I'm Zoe Crerar, also from the Access to Inclusion team, and I'm an advisory teacher as well.
So the purpose of this presentation is about early identification and the universal support and explaining what that means. During the session, we'll go through the first steps you should take when you first notice a child or young person might be having some difficulties. This is aimed at anyone working with or involved with the education of a child or young person. For example, a parent, carer, a teacher, a teaching assistant can initiate, or other professionals, e.g. health and social care. During the session today, it's really important you are fully engaged, you take on the information that we provide, and your point of view and relevant experiences are very much appreciated. What we will do throughout the training is we will try and keep to time to keep this training concise, and hopefully they'll deliver the knowledge and understanding clearly for you. There are planned breaks in the recording, but as it is a recorded webinar, any housekeeping will be within your own setting. Please pause when you feel the need to take a break and work through at your own pace. During the session today, we are going to look at 5 different areas. We are going to introduce the Somerset Graduated Response Tool. We're going to introduce the tools for identification of need, the quick checkers and how we can use them, the use of the universal barriers and strategies records and how we can use them, and then further signposting to additional documents. This training sits under the curriculum for the children's workforce under the inclusion area and encompasses all the areas within inclusion.
Okay, so the aims of this webinar, they are to provide you with the tools needed for that early identification of need, and that's to ensure that the right support happens at the right time, starting with universal assessment and provision, which would then inform assess, plan, do, review processes and cycles. The assessment documents that we're going to share with you today can be completed by anyone involved in a child or young person's education, for example, a class teacher, parent carer, teaching assistant, or social worker, amongst others. So we want to ensure that following this webinar, you are equipped with the knowledge you need to identify barriers to learning at that universal level using the quick checker tools, and also that you are equipped with the knowledge to select and record the impact of strategies and provision at a universal level using the Universal Strategies and Barriers Record document. Some of the main things to remember, similar to the aims here, that we are looking at identifying needs and provision at a universal level, but that Somerset's graduated response tools, both versions, cover universal and SEN support level identification and provision tools. And as I've mentioned, there are templates to record the graduated response to SEN at a universal and SEN support level on the local offer website, which you can access following the link. So, what are Somerset graduated response tools? So we have Somerset's graduated response tool, which is the school age version, and Somerset's graduated response tool early years version, and they now replace Somerset core standards for SEN. They've been co-produced with stakeholders from education, health, social care, parent carers, and support service teams. The graduated response tools are tools to support that early identification of special educational needs and also set out what should be ordinarily available to support young people and children in Somerset settings. So the tool itself and supporting documents are designed to support professionals, parent carers and children and young people to follow and document a graduated response to SEN. The graduated response tools set out the barriers to learning that children and young people may have, how to identify them, and the strategies and provisions that could be in place to support those specifically identified barriers. The tools have been created to support all users to understand that graduated response to special educational needs in the context of current legislation. The documents make clear what to expect in terms of what is provided, and they are written for parent carers, children and young people, school staff and those who provide services to families. The documents that we'll be looking at in this webinar can form records towards evidencing identification of need as part of assess, plan, do review cycles, which inform a graduated response to SEN. So where can I find Somerset's graduated response tools? On the page noted here on the left on Somerset's local offer, you will find your links to the tool, and as I click through this slide, we'll highlight how to access it from that local offer page. So you're going there into the education section, and within that education section, you are looking for the Somerset Graduated Response Tool pages. You'll notice on the right-hand side of the slide here, there are two versions of the tool, as I've mentioned, one for school age and one for early years, and a post-16 version is in development. The bottom right-hand side of this slide here, you've got a direct link to the tool. And if you Google Somerset Graduated Response Tool, it will appear in your search results. We always suggest that you access the tool from the local offer webpage when you want to reference it, because we are updating it regularly, fixing broken links and making tweaks and changes as directed by user feedback. So how do you use the graduated response tools? So the tools look similar and both have that similar contents page. We've got one example here. So on the left, we've got the contents page list, which has hyperlinks to the relevant areas. So that allows you to focus on the information you need, and you're not going to read it from front to back as it is a large document. On the right-hand side, you've got links to key documents. There are some differences between the early years and school age to ensure they're age appropriate. However, there are a number of links that are the same, such as the Code of Practice and Somerset's local offer. So what's new in the updated version of the Somerset Graduated Response Tool School Age? So now they both have an additional column within the main tables of the tools titled Tools for Identification of Need, which contains direct links to tools which support that early identification of needs at a universal and SEN support level. Most of the links at Universal are free resources, and where there is a cost, it is noted. Most costs are minimal within the Universal section. Most of the identification tools within the Universal section are accessible to all setting staff, professionals and parent carers. When you move towards the SEN support tools for identification of need, they become more specialist and require specific expertise and often have a greater cost. So you just see where the arrows move there, the underlined text indicates there is a link to an identification tool. This is the link that you would be directed to if you were to press the underlined text on the following slide. And this is what the high frequency word assessment tool looks like. It's a simple tool for identifying whether a child or young person is able to read or spell high frequency words. As you can see, it could be accessed and used by schools, professionals, parent carers, as previously mentioned. It would just be a case of using it to see if the child could read or spell and these words and noting that down. And here is another example of a universal identification tool, this time from the communication and interaction section of the tool. So the universally speaking checklist. If you were to click the link within the tool, it would take you to this universally speaking checklist. free and again accessible to and for schools, professionals and parent carers.
Okay, so today we're going to look at the tools that you can use to support early identification of special educational needs and provision planning at a universal level. The tools that we're going to look at are the quick checkers and the universal barriers and strategies record. As you can see from the left here, they sit below the main tool, the main document within those supporting documents area. If you don't already have them open, please open and get them ready because we will be using them as part of this session. So if that's the case, you need to do that, please pause and open them now. There is a direct link on the page here, but we will be looking at these quick checkers as you can see on the screen. So here are the quick checkers and this is what they look like. They are not diagnostic, but they will help us to organise our thoughts and concerns. These can be used as part of record keeping and to inform assess, plan, do, review processes as part of a graduated response. I will outline a scenario and demonstrate how the quick checkers are used by both schools and parent carers. For example, pupil X has always got on with their work quietly and seems to make progress. At the start of year 4, they started to avoid completing tasks. And now as the year is progressing, the class teacher is noting more disruptive behaviours and refusal to complete tasks. They are also having more conflict with their peers in the playground. Class teacher arranges a conversation with the parent carer to discuss their concerns. During this conversation, the parent carer also noted that pupil X was always reluctant to do reading or any homework, and it caused a battle at home. Going through the quick checkers together is the first step to unpicking what is going on. The parent completed them themselves and then also the class teacher. On the screen, you can see the parent carer response in yellow. Right, the parent carer in green and the class teacher in yellow. It is worth reflecting at this point that there are some similarities in response and also there are some differences. This can be the case and it's nothing to worry about. During the conversation with the parent carer and school, parent also mentioned that due to COVID, they haven't had their eyes tested and parents agreed to do this as well as the work that they were going to do alongside school. What I'd like you to do now is I'd like to pause the recording and have a look at the quick checkers with a child or young person in mind. I'd like you to pause the recording and open up the quick checkers for either the school age or the early years. Use all the pages within and have a child or young person in mind. Remember, this is not diagnostic and should be used to organise thoughts. If you haven't had the opportunity to open the quick checkers, they will appear on the next 5 slides. Please pause on the one you will need to. Take time now to have a look and think about a young person you may have in mind that you may want to think about. Okay, hopefully in doing that task, you would have looked at all the areas, the 4 broad areas of need to unpick with that young person. Now we will look at the Universal Barriers and Strategies record. This is an extract of the universal sections of the main tables within the Somerset's graduated response tools. This should be used to record which barriers have been identified through the quick checkers and which strategies have already been used, their impact, and what strategies are going to be tried next. Please pause the recording now and open up the Universal Barriers and Strategies record, either school age or early years. On your screen, you will see an example of a Universal Barriers and Strategy record that has been completed with a key adult and parent. You will notice that it has been a specific focus on one of the areas of need. In this case, they've focused on cognition and learning. This is another example. The Universal Barriers and Strategy record can be used for further conversations between schools, families, professionals, parent carers, and the young person themselves. You can see here on this example that the tool has been highlighted with a key to indicate what has been tried both at home and at school, and what has been successful. There are also columns to record the start and end date, as well as for reviewing and noting next steps. They can work as an ongoing record at a universal level. With the addition of the tools for identification of need, you will see in the end column the assessment, review, and next steps should include data that have been gathered through the assessments. As previously mentioned in an earlier part of this session, further conversation with the school parent has also mentioned that due to COVID, they haven't had their eyes tested, and parents agreed to do this. So again, what I would like you to do is to pause this session, and with a specific child in mind, hopefully the one you did for the Universal Barriers and quick checkers, I would like you to focus on seeing which strategies you might want to do to organise your thoughts. So pause the recording, open the Universal Barriers and Strategies record, whether it is the school age or early years, work through one of the 4 broad areas of need identified as a priority through the quick checkers, and with that same child in mind, select the provisions and strategy you feel will be most helpful to try first.
So hopefully you've had a good opportunity there to use the Universal Barriers and Strategies record to have a think about the ways in which you might further identify needs at a universal level and the strategies that you might put in place for that young person that you did the initial activity of the quick checkers for. So as a key adult professional or parent carer, these are some perhaps useful conversation starters you might use to follow up your use of the quick checkers and Universal Barriers and Strategies records in discussion with your SENCO. So I've used the Somerset Graduated Response quick checkers and noticed that, obviously picking out those key themes. I'm concerned that young person is finding school hard at the moment. Can we meet to look at the Somerset Graduated Response tool to work together to help? So you could say to, try and pin down needs a little further. And we've got 2 other examples here around, where you may have used the quick checkers from the tool. You might want to discuss those findings further. You could use it actually as a bank of strategies that you might want to suggest are used for a child or young person. Or you might have found a specific assessment tool within the universal section, such as the universally speaking checklist, as shown earlier, And you might want to sort of bring the results of that to the Senko along with the strategies that have already been tried at a universal level. Okay, so aside from the quick checkers and the universal barriers and strategies record, there are several other templates available to you to record the graduated response to SEN. And they are the Assess, Plan, Do, Review form, a pupil passport. There are two documents to support funding. So one that helps to outline whole school funding, and another one which helps to document spending and funding at an individual pupil level. And there's also an SEN support referral form, which could be used to refer to the Senko once universal level identification and provision has been exhausted. These templates are available on the local offer website following the link and in the same link we've used throughout. There are early years and school age versions of all these documents. And before we finish, I'd just like to draw your attention to the additional pages within the main document, because there's some really helpful signposting within them. So at the end of each of the 4 broad areas of need, there are tables, there are signposting pages, and here is a screenshot of some of the signposting for social, emotional, mental health. So within these pages, there's signposting to additional support, which might be helpful when you're looking to support a child or young person. It might be further ways that you could identify needs, charitable organisations, online training, and further support websites. These signposting is for all users, again, parent carers, children and young people, and schools and wider professionals working with them. So just to allow you to reflect on what we have covered in the webinar today, we have a quick quiz for you. So I'll run through the questions, and then please pause the webinar to think about, discuss if you're with another person, or jot down responses. First question, where would you find the Somerset Graduator Response Tool and those additional resources we've shared with you? What is the purpose of Somerset Graduator Response Tools? Who can use the assessment tools in the universal section? What are the quick checkers used for? Who can use the quick checkers? And why would you use the universal barriers and strategies record? So please pause the recording and think through or discuss your answers to those questions. So hopefully you were able to answer those questions, and if not, the responses or the answers are on the slide here, just to remind you of some of the key learning from today's webinar. So you'll find the Graduator Response Tools School Age and Early Years version on the local offer website. The link is on the slide. What is the purpose of the tools? So it's about supporting the identification of barriers really specifically, and then the support strategies that should be put in place at a universal and SEN support level. So anybody who's working to support a child or young person can use and access them. Why would you use the quick checkers? Well, it's about initial organisation of your thoughts or concerns where there might be an SEN, trying to work out which of the 4 broad areas those concerns fall into. And anybody can use the quick checkers who is working or supporting a young child's education. And in terms of the universal barriers and strategies records, they are used to identify and document strategies at that universal level. And remember, Kennedy mentioned that final column about noting the impact of those strategies and next steps using assessment information.
Okay, so now it's really important we think about what we've learned today and how we're going to use that information. It is really important that we take it away and we start to embed it in our normal day practice. So I'd like you to think about what you are going to take away and what your next steps might be. Are you going to identify a child or young person that you would like to do the quick checkers on? Have you already done quick checkers but haven't taken it any further? Are you then going to look at universal barriers and strategies records and look at the different strategies that you might wish to use? I'd like you to take some time to think about that and think about what your next steps might be. What do you need to remember? We recommend you do go away and use the quick checkers and universal strategy record with other adults supporting a child or young person to consolidate your knowledge from this webinar. The more you use it, the easier it will become to use and the better understanding you will on strategies, both at universal and SEND support, that you'll be able to use. The main things to remember, as we mentioned earlier, is that Somerset Graduate Response Tool is a support in identifying needs and provision at both universal and an SEN support level. There are a number of templates that can be used to record that graduated response to special educational needs at that universal and SEN support level on the local offer website. It's really important that we get the foundations and the early identification of need and provision in place at the right time, the right support at the right time. And the Somerset Graduated Response Tool is in place to support with that. So my name is Kennedy Coles and my colleague here, Zoe Carrera, is both our advisory teachers, as we mentioned earlier, from Access to Inclusion. If you'd like further information and guidance, you can get it on the local offer on the Somerset Graduate Response Tool. But if you have further queries, you can do that through Access to Inclusion at somerset.gov.uk. At the end of the Graduated Response Tool document, on both the early years and the school age, there is a feedback tool for which we would appreciate any comments, any feedback around how you find the document and how you're able to use it. We would really appreciate that and welcome your feedback so that we can ensure that the provision of what should ordinarily be available within mainstream education settings across the 4 broad areas of needs are up to date. As mentioned earlier, we will be keeping the document updated on a regular basis and recommend, rather than downloading and printing a copy, you save the link onto your computer or onto an area you're able to access at any time. We would like to thank you for your time today and appreciate the time you've taken to listen to this webinar on the Somerset Graduated Response Tool. And we look forward to seeing the impact of the use of the tool for our children and young people in Somerset.